All right, so yesterday I was working on extending some wires out because I'm moving the solenoid from up close to all the electronics here. It's going to be on my battery box, which means it's going to be clear down in here. So this set of wires had to be extended from clear up here all the way down. And after I got done, I thought, well, it's been a while since I've hooked things up to a battery and checked certain systems. I'm always worried about losing spark. So I hooked a battery up to it, and I didn't have this wire hooked up to the starter there, but I hit the start button and it clicked, telling me the solenoid's doing what it's supposed to do. So I set this up here, held it on up here, held it on and cranked it over. Checked spark, had spark, actually shot some starting fluid down the carburetor throats, made it blubber a little bit. Then I just started checking, make sure I had turn signals and brake lights and tail lights on the rear. I went up front and I was checking turn signals and everything was working up there. And for some reason, I reached over to hit the horn. Nothing from the horn. Then I went further. I was checking the headlight plug. Nothing at the headlight. Well, long story short, the horn was bad. Separate issue. And on motorcycles, when you hit the start button, it dims out the headlight. Or not dims it out, it shuts off the headlight to save on electrical current. So you crank faster, and lo and behold, I thought I had an issue with this side control not having the correct polarity, something going on there. Took it all apart, tested everything went fine. I've been studying this pretty heavy. That's the wiring diagram for this particular model. And on my white tank and spoked wheels with the red wheels that cafe I built, if you go back and you happen to have seen it, I had an issue inside of this component, which is the start button on that build, and there was a busted wire. Well, I'm messing around with this thing trying to figure out why I have no headlight, and I reached up and just gave this piece a little wiggle, and the dang light came on. So that tells me there is an issue inside of that little box with all these wires running into it. So I got to go in here, and I think everything works fine. Then sometimes when I'm starting it, I have to push and wiggle just right to get this plunger to actually make, you see how slow it returns? I'm going to take it apart, clean it. I think the contacts are just bad. I don't think I have a busted wire like I did on that particular build. So here goes. All right, so I got it apart. I don't like messing with these. Come on, light. So down in there, you can see the area that it's supposed to make contact with. The little, won't stay focused. Little components in there where it's supposed to make contact with these pieces right here as they rub back and forth down inside here. They make contact with certain wires at certain points. That's what I got going on, is just dirt, nasty grime. I don't know if there's any melted plastic in there also, as well as the contacts on this are horrible. I'm gonna get this thing cleaned up. Hopefully I don't have to order another switch, because I'd like to have this bike further along this, and that would just put me waiting. So we'll see what happens. All right, I got it all cleaned up. I got a penny there just to show you the size of what I'm working on. In this orange reddish component, underneath this, with these little runners, is a component that keeps the electricity passing through. It almost looks like a wafer board, kind of like maybe fiberglass piece. Under that is a spring that keeps those pushed upward. On the end of this thing is a spring. And what happens is when that component is installed into this piece here, as you can see, you have contact. It'll bridge across here to here when you're in the start position. When you're off the start position, it bridges from here to here, and that's what keeps the headlight on. When you press in, it turns the headlight off by sliding that one little runner piece, one of those little things there, inward, stopping the headlight from being on, but on the other side triggering the starter. I don't really recommend going in here and working on this thing. It is teeny tiny, and now I got to try to somehow get that all back together without the spring that holds these little runners here up from popping off, getting else back together. We'll see how it goes. Okay, we have success. I have the jumper cables hooked back up to the starter solenoid, or I should say the battery wire, and the bike. It won't crank over because I have the starter wire disconnected from the starter, but when I turn the key on, I have a light. When I hit the starter switch, yay, success. Love that. I'll probably have to clean up this switch as well, because when I go from dims up to brights, you have to wiggle the switch just a little bit. So I got crappy contacts in here as well. Imagine that on an old bike. All right, moving on. All right, so I've finished up with the electronics on the battery box. That installation, if you want to see it, is basically covered on, I think I have 2 or 3 videos on here for the battery box modification. So if you want to see that, go looking for it. So I'm going to move on to the exhaust. This is basically what I'm thinking. Something mounted about like that. Dual it up both sides. I have some just tubing that I use for the exhaust on these. I'll cut it down. And I don't have a tubing bender. I have a Harbor Freight pipe bender. A buddy of mine bought this for doing the exhaust on his bike. We learned this thing likes to crush the pipe or the tubing because it's a pipe bender. So what we've done to keep it from crushing is where the contact piece is in here. Let me see if I can get a picture of this. So I slide the pipe in like that, and what happens is where it makes contact down the bottom side, I can't get my finger in here, on the bottom side of this, where the U-shaped piece is at in here, it likes to bend it too sharp, doesn't support it properly, and also where this top roller hits, it dimples the top side of the pipe. So I made this apparatus that fits in here. You can see the bolt. It'll lock it down. And then I have a piece of a pipe that I've U-shaped. I slide that in from the top side. Lock it down with this bolt that supports the top. And then to keep these rollers from crushing the pipe or the tube, I have a piece of pipe I slide on both ends, and that keeps it from smashing the top side of the exhaust tubing down. So let me get these cut down to size, bent up, and we'll see what we come out with. Okay, so here's one side. Didn't take much to clear the bottom portion of the frame, because where they're going to hit coming through here is right in the bottom section here. So I just needed to come through and make a U shape and come up into here. Turned out pretty good. I'm going to get these set up there, tacked in. I've already got the other muffler on here also. Kind of makes it wide and low. So let me get these tacked on. Okay, got it tacked up. They actually came out pretty symmetrical. Better than I thought they would. Looking from the top side, see if I can show both. I can't get both sides at the same time. But as far as the curve in, right, the foot peg, just about like I'd hoped. Okay, I'm gonna pull the headers off, and or down pipes, whatever you want to call them, and get them full welded, ground up, smoothed out. Get these stop rings off. Okay, exhaust all mounted up. What'll be done to it as far as the forward section really will be up to the purchaser if he wants me to go through the bike and redo some stuff. Could do anything from black heat paint to a wrap. If I were going to do a wrap, I'd probably do, I think it's called titanium. It's kind of a, I don't even know how to explain titanium. Titanium's kind of a gray, I don't even know, it's kind of a unique color. It's the one I put on the red-headed twin. So there's the final result. Got it tied in pretty well. I actually used the passenger foot peg area to mount the support for the exhaust or the muffler. Height-wise, I should say Length out the back, it came out very good. Height-wise, it's pretty level.
Of course, the bike's sitting sideways, but if you look at it like that.
I like the way it came out. Turned out well. All right. Okay, I'm gonna switch out the forks for another set of forks I have. These were off of another project. They have spacers in them that lifted the bike. It was actually on that red framed enduro adventure bike build I did. So I'll have to pull the spacers out. While I'm doing that, I'm removing the original headlight brackets, switching the tire out. I don't care for this tire and it's pretty old. It doesn't match the rear. I happen to have another wheel and tire I'll switch it over to. So in that I'll also set up the brakes for the front. I have a different caliper. This one's got some issues with it, so I'll switch the caliper out, put the new master cylinder on, and see where I'm at that point. I'm going to cut the video section off here. So in this section I finished up on getting the battery and the battery box mounted, the wires finished up on the back section, while excluding the tail light, because those lights or wires are still tucked up under here, waiting for me to make a decision on what I'm doing for a tail light, brake light, turn light. Also got the exhaust done. I ended up finding, because I didn't have both sides, one side had a chrome strap here and a chrome clamp, and the other side was black and a black clamp. So I got those matching. That is done. I got the forks switched out to those other forks, pulled the spacer out, fender mounted, caliper done, other caliper on there, brakes working really well, new master cylinder mounted. And I think from this point I'm gonna move up to probably get the headlight mounted. And headlight, tail light, and finish up some of the metal work. Get the bare areas painted, which would include all this area in here, the portions I did on the rear, the chop on the neck. And that's about all I will probably paint, because that's just bare metal. Thanks for watching this section, and we'll see you on the next one.